I'm Gene Kogan, an artist, educator, and machine learning engineer. I've spent most of my career exploring the intersection of generative art and artificial intelligence. Today, I'd like to introduce you to one of my early works, A Book from the Sky, a project from 2015 that is, to my knowledge, the very first intentional artwork made using an AI generative model. When I created this piece, generative AI was an obscure technology. There was no OpenAI, no Gemini, no Midjourney, or any of the apps, tools, and infrastructure we now take for granted. There was pretty much no field called generative AI. The term itself wouldn't be widely used until more than 5 years later. There were no pre-trained models you could download and use. Every model had to be trained from scratch. There was no text prompting. Everything had to be sampled directly through the latent space, requiring a deep understanding of how the underlying technology worked. The models produced small, pixelated, sometimes incoherent images, far from what most people would consider aesthetically pleasing. But owing to my background as a machine learning engineer, I saw their incredible potential. It was a new frontier, and although I didn't know how or when, I knew it was going to change the world one day. A Book from the Sky grew out of my fascination with a then new technique called generative adversarial networks, or GANs for short. I trained the model on a dataset of over 1 million handwritten Chinese characters. The goal was to teach the neural network to learn and recreate the essence of these characters. The result was a completely novel set of Chinese-like glyphs that had never existed before, characters that floated somewhere between real and imaginary. The title of the piece was inspired by a book from 1988 by Xu Bing, who created fictitious Chinese characters that resemble traditional prints from the Song and Ming dynasties. My work carries this idea forward, but through a new lens, the latent space. It's a compressed representation of the data that captures the structure and patterns of the characters, and navigating the space allowed me to generate new, in-between forms that don't exist in reality, but reveal something deeper about the writing system, and perhaps language itself. As I experimented, I found that the GAN could interpolate between characters, creating smooth transitions from one character to the next. What I found fascinating is how the radicals, the building blocks of Chinese characters, stayed consistent through these interpolations. For example, when transitioning between characters that share the radical ko for mouth, the radicals seamlessly glided between forms, even as the other parts of the characters changed. This exploration opens up a new dimension of expressiveness, showing us not just what exists, but what could exist. The interpolated characters represent concepts in between words, revealing how meaning is fluid and ever-changing. It reminds us that language, and especially writing, is far more flexible and dynamic than we often imagine. Looking back, A Book from the Sky was an experiment that not only paved the way for my own journey into generative AI, but also for the entire field. At the time, I had no idea that it would become such a central part of today's creative landscape. What I do know is that besides for being deeply meaningful to me personally, this work offers a unique blend of tradition and technology, showing how AI can help us reimagine even the most ancient forms of human expression.